We all would like to have more money. It's something that we spend most of our adult lives chasing after, whether we want to admit it or not. Most adults spend 5 days a week working sun up to sundown from our early 20s till our late 60s, chasing after this dream of one day amassing enough money. And I think most of us would say, of course we know that money doesn't equal happiness. But I think deep down, a lot of us believe that if we had enough money, we'd be in general a lot more happy than we currently are, and definitely be able to enjoy life more fully. So in a sense, whether we want to admit it or not, most of us simultaneously also believe that having more money does in fact on some level correlate with being happier. So which is it? Does having more money actually make us happier or not? And I think this is a really important question to ask. If we're gonna spend the majority of our adult life working from 20 till retirement age, chasing after this dream of having enough money, I think it's important to know if the end result is actually what we want. Well, I'm someone who didn't have to wait until I was late into my 60s to know the answer. I was able to make $1 million in a year and a half. And in my experience, the answer to the question of whether money does in fact equal happiness is a bit more complicated than most people might first expect. And I think if most people knew the real answer to this question, it would completely change how they live their lives and how they view wealth. When I first started on my journey, I was on unemployment. I had 5 kids, I had rent to pay, I had bills that were due. I was severely depressed and I didn't know what to do. I knew I needed to do something though, and encouraged by my wife, I set out on a journey to amass a big enough fortune that I could enjoy life, that I could spend time with my family, that I didn't always have to worry about, paying rent, or I didn't always have to worry about all these bills that were due. On top of that, with 5 kids, doing something as simple as going out to get fast food can end up being pretty dang expensive. And things like Christmas and even budget-friendly vacations end up being huge expenses. And as a parent, you want to give your kids like the best life ever. You want to give them the best childhood ever. You don't want them missing out on all the things that the other kids get to do. You want to do fun trips. You want to take your kids sometimes to eat out. You want to take your kids on vacation sometimes. And my goal was just to have enough money to be able to do those things, to be able to take my family on adventures, to not be stuck all the time in the house doing nothing. I didn't want a Lambo or an expensive watch or a big house. I just wanted more time with my family. Deep down, subconsciously though, I think I also just wanted to be a good dad and to be a good husband. I didn't have the perfect childhood, and I've always dreamed of having an amazing family life. And I thought if I could make $1 million, it would definitely help me do that. I didn't think that having $1 million would magically make me happy. I just thought that having $1 million would definitely give me flexibility and freedom to solve some of my problems, have less stress, and have more time to spend with my family. And so that was my vision, and I got to work, and I started out my journey working these really long days. I'd work sometimes from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night. Although that's kind of an extreme. Most days I was working from about 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that's not really the worst part. The worst part is that even when I got off of work, I couldn't stop thinking about work. I couldn't stop trying to solve these problems or come up with new ideas. Even though I tried to shut down my brain and say, hey, I want to focus on time with the family, I would end up thinking constantly about work. And I basically was able to excuse away all these long hours and the inability to shut off my brain after work as just a temporary thing, just something I had to go through during this season of my life until I finally hit my goal. And I think a lot of people, if not most people, do the exact same thing. They will work 5 days a week, these long hours, all of their life, and maybe a job that they don't even like, with this idea that one day it'll all be worth it. Maybe it's, when they finally get a raise, or maybe it's when they finally get a promotion, or maybe it's when they finally have their lucky break, or maybe for most people, it's when they retire at 65 years old and finally can go, enjoy their life and sip pina coladas on the beach somewhere. And to be fair, as time went on, I did start working less hours. I, was able to get a handle on my schedule, and I was able to not work as much. But I still had this really big issue where after work, I couldn't stop thinking about all the problems I had been dealing with during the day. I was also usually so exhausted that when my kids wanted to go play or they wanted to go jump on the trampoline, I would say, hey, not today. I've had a really stressful day. Dad just wants to rest and, not run around and jump on the trampoline. And at this point in my work life, I was crushing it. I had built up massive audiences on TikTok and YouTube from scratch. I was making a ridiculous amount of money, and it's kind of hard to describe because I was genuinely enjoying it all. Like, it was really, really fun. I loved this whole journey and transformation and becoming a better version of myself and growing myself. But at the same time, every night that I went to bed, I would get like super depressed, and I'd have this deep dread that I was making this huge mistake, that I wasn't a good enough dad, and that life was just gonna pass me by before I'd ever get the chance to get around to be the dad I wanted to be, or to be the husband I wanted to be, or to have the family I wanted to have. But through all this, I just kept pressing on because I kept telling myself that once I hit my goal, it would all be worth it. And you know, it's not like I wasn't still doing things with my family, or that like I wasn't playing with my kids or spending time with my wife. I was still doing all of those things, but it's like I was on autopilot throughout all those things. It's like I wasn't fully present. I wasn't fully there. I wasn't fully invested into those things. I struggled to get my brain to stop working, to stop planning, and just to be fully present in the moment. And eventually, after a year and a half, I finally hit my $1 million mark. I went from unemployment to millionaire. I had accomplished the goal that I had worked so hard for. And I'd be lying if I said it wasn't amazing. It was amazing. It felt incredible to have accomplished my goal, to have transformed as a person. The entire journey was amazing, and I was really proud of what I'd accomplished and who I'd become. But I noticed something else too. Even though I had all this money and I'd gone from essentially nobody to this guy with this massive social media following, I wasn't really any more happy or fulfilled than I had been before all this. Sure, there were definitely things that were better. I never had to worry about, paying rent anymore. I never had to worry about like going out to eat and feeling like I was gonna, regret it later. But all this success also came with a bunch of new problems. Now I had to worry about all these complicated tax and business implications that I've never had to deal with. I also started to worry about losing everything that I'd built. And my social media following has to be constantly upkept. I have to keep constantly churning out new content, or that'll suddenly die away. Then there's of course the fact that I'm constantly dealing with the barrage of just negative people online, which is just a reality of having any sort of social media following. And maybe that all sounds ridiculous to you. Maybe that sounds like first world problems, like that's not a big deal. And I agree. I would certainly rather have a lot of money and the problems that come with it than not have a lot of money. But still, my point is, it's not quite what I expected when I first set out on this journey. It was far from perfect and carefree, and it certainly wasn't a solution to fix all my problems. And outside of all of this, I still felt this drive that I needed more money. Like once I hit $1 million, I was like, this isn't as much money as I thought it was. And I started thinking to myself, if I could only get to $10 million, then surely that would be enough. And it was through all of this that I've learned some really valuable wisdom that's allowed me to be much, much happier. Number one, you don't need money or to buy nice things to be a good husband or a good dad. I thought that giving my kids a good childhood was taking them on a lot of fun trips and a lot of big adventures. But it turns out being a good dad doesn't require expensive vacations or the best toys or a big house with a fun yard to play in. My kids are usually just as happy playing with the cardboard box as they are the toy that came inside it. And they'd certainly rather have a dad who's intentional, spends time with them, and helps them navigate all of life's lessons than any big yard, video game console, or amazing vacation. The second thing I learned is although money can't directly buy happiness, that doesn't mean it's not important. Money is just a tool, but it is a tool you need to survive. And what I'm about to say is definitely countercultural because all the movies and TV shows teach you that if you're rich, you must be obsessed with money. But what I've actually found making a lot of money is that the opposite is true. When you have a lot of money, it becomes a far smaller worry in your life, and you tend to think about money far less. And when you have very little money, you might tell yourself that money isn't important, money doesn't buy happiness, and all these different things that Hollywood and TV shows teach you to tell yourself. But at the same time, you're consumed with constantly working for money, constantly worrying about paying bills. So in my experience, there's certainly a lot of value in having an abundance of money over a lack of money, as long as, number 3, you understand that true wealth isn't a big house or a nice car. True wealth is family, friends, joy, adventure, peace, health, and gratitude. Making money without those things is always going to be empty. But money money with peace, family, friends, joy, health, gratitude will often make those things even better. Money isn't a bad thing, it's just a tool, and it's your decision on how you view and use that tool that determines how it affects your life. Lesson number 4 I learned is that no amount of money will ever feel like enough. Warren Buffett, when he was literally the richest man on the planet, was once asked by a reporter, "Warren, you're the richest man on the planet. You have so much money, it's ridiculous. There's no way you could even spend the amount of money that you have. So my question for you is, how much money is enough?" Warren Buffett stopped, thought it over for a moment, and then with a little smile said, "Just a little bit more." Too many people get stuck believing this lie that just a little bit more money will make them happy. But money doesn't make you happy, it's just a tool. Learn to be content and grateful for what you have while also balancing the drive to push yourself and aim for a higher goal. It's a dichotomy and kind of hard for some people to understand, but you can be content and grateful for what you have while also striving for something more. It's not bad to pursue big goals, but do it from a place of contentment and gratitude. Lastly, number 5, never put off acquiring true wealth to make money. We spend too much of our lives working for some far off distant illusion of happiness, when we should be first investing into our family, our friends, and living our life now, then building our income secondary. Every 90-year-old billionaire would give every dime they have just to be young again. Anyone who's ever lost a limb or lost their ability to see, I'm sure would give every dollar that they have just to get that back. And anyone who's ever lost a child or lost a spouse would give every dime they have, every possession they have, just to spend another day with the person that they lost. So why do we constantly trade our time, our health, and our relationships in the pursuit of money? If I could do this whole thing over again, I still would have started my journey. I still would have pushed myself to the limit. Like I said, I love pushing myself and I love seeing what I'm made of. That was amazing. But I wouldn't have traded away important things in the process. I would have went a little slower, got off work a little earlier, and stressed a whole lot less. Ultimately, life goes by way too quick. And if we can't be present and we can't enjoy it, then what's all the money in the world matter anyway? If this video was helpful, make sure to hit that like button. If you have any comments or anything that you kind of want to add to this video, let me know down in the comment section below. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button, but you got to also hit the little bell if you want to be notified each time I release a video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.